Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. MSDNC had a full-on meltdown this morning. Not happy that the special counsel that was looking into President Biden's mishandling of classified documents, although he found and announced yesterday he would not be charging the president, saying that he did not intentionally mishandle classified documents. He did include in his report that through a 5-hour interview with the president, on that mishandling of the documents, found him to be an elderly man with severely poor memory. MSNBC was not happy that that was included. And President Biden last night came out reacting to basically being exonerated, and he's not going to be charged. But he essentially had to defend himself because the headlines were that the special counsel basically said his cognitive function is significantly declining. Before I show the MSNBC meltdown, wait till you watch the president in defending himself, basically defending that he's not senile, kind of coming off that way. Let's take a listen.
I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side. I've been pushing really hard, really hard.
So I did not take a geography class recently, but I do know that Mexico is underneath America, and Egypt, I think he meant to refer to the Egyptian president, who is Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, referred to as Sisi. He confused the president of Mexico and the country of Mexico with the president of Egypt and the country of Egypt, because Egypt is on the southern border of Israel. That is not a gaffe. That is clearly a further example of an elderly man mixing things up, which honestly happens to elderly men, elderly women. He's 80 years old. And that's why when he was running for president, remember, Status Coup told you the truth. We showed you and we told you these were not gaffes. These are not, it's not a stutter. He wasn't having a stutter when he was vice president. He wasn't having a stutter when he was a senator. This is when you grow elderly and old, not all people, but for a lot of people, your memory goes. I'm 37 and I don't have a great memory. But the media, including MSDNC, gaslit us and covered for him and didn't even show the worst of the worst in cases, him not even remembering his boss Obama's name. But in a press conference to defend himself that he's not senile, he's confusing Mexico and Egypt and the president of Mexico with the president of Egypt. You can't make this stuff up. But that's not what Morning Joe is concerned about. No, no, no. Oh, no. They are concerned that the special counsel even had the audacity to mention his poor memory in the report exonerating him. It's a long clip. Buckle up. Make sure you're not on a full stomach.
Yeah, you know what?
Without
I'm a
saying
simple
something
country
like that.
lawyer.
Yeah.
John, I'm a simple country lawyer, and I know. What's the headline? What should the headline from this report be? Not indicted.
Not guilty. Right.
Not the evidence to indict him.
Yeah.
It's not there. And the clear differences, as he wrote, between Trump and Biden. That should be.
And I would have thought, Joe.
Wait, hold on, John. Hold on, John. Do you think that this guy is so naive? You think this guy is so stupid? Do you guys think this guy is so clueless that he didn't know by putting words in that Donald Trump would love for him to put in there, that that wasn't going to be the headline for the New York Post, that that wouldn't be on every... The guy knew. He's a Trumper who knew.
Right.
So why in the world would the Justice Department allow that dicta to be in there? It's gratuitous.
Well,
and he knows it's gratuitous, and it was bad faith. It was bad faith that he did it, and it was even worse judgment that the Justice Department allowed that garbage to be released.
Right, and I think that's now raising kind of the second point. I mean, I'm continually stunned by people who I think should know better in Washington, D.C., who turn out to be just that naive or just that stupid. I've never met this man. I'm not going to impute his motives. I've never spoken to him about it. So I will say, I think Jonathan Lemire, Willie Geist, Chuck Rosenberg, at least, I think we all would have known that if you wrote "elderly man with poor memory," that would end up right here on the wood of the New York Post and will be echoed in campaign advertising out of Donald Trump's mouth, et cetera, et cetera. We all would have known that. I don't know if the special counsel did know that. I do think that you've raised a really fundamental question, and it's a question that, that what I hear from inside the Biden administration is that, a lot of the fury last night was directed as it may be more at Merrick Garland
for good reason.
Than at her, I think because of the fact that they have always thought that this special counsel was unnecessary. The facts here suggest that they may be wrong about that, in the sense that things that Biden is found to have done here, and some of the evidence that the special counsel brought to bear, just on terms of how badly mishandled some of these classified documents they may be wrong that this probably was Garland may have been right to appoint the special counsel to look into this for a variety of reasons, but they've been mad at him since then. And now they're really mad at him because the question of why you would allow this report to come out with this language in it, that does rest in Merrick Garland's hands, does rest in his lap, so to speak. And I that's where I think the buck may stop here when we ultimately talk about who's responsible.
It is such a repeated James Comey. And the fact, James Comey writing the letter he did 10 days beforehand, acting like, hey, I'm just playing it down the middle. Really? And for Merrick Garland to not learn from 2016 that actually when you're involved politically, when you're involved in a political a situation like this, that you don't actually take care to be careful at what you do. Well, he didn't. Comey didn't. Her just like Comey decided, I want to put myself in the middle of this campaign.
Yeah. First of all, we're going to get to Morning Joe. It's beyond the pale that the President of the United States, who has been writing a blank check for Israel to commit genocide on the people of Palestine in Gaza, killing at this point about 30,000, including about 15,000 children, called it over the top. That response is a little over the top. It's like if you get in a fight with your loved one and they pop off at you, that's a little over the top. Over the top? It's genocide, and you're funding it. And you have the gall to minimize it as over the top. Putting that aside for a second. Listen, I'm going to try to be fair here because Biden's 80 years old. And a lot of elderly people, they're sundowning, you lose your memory, your cognitive functioning. Some people, unfortunately, develop Alzheimer's, dementia. He's not unique. And this is not unique in older people. But the fact that you have a cable news station in MSDNC, CNN, let's also throw in the New York Times, the Washington Post, all the digital sites. They saw a lot of this 3.5, 4, 5 years ago when he was running. And they said nothing. And when they did say anything about it, they lied to you. If you roll back the tape, we were telling you this is not a stutter. These are not gaffes. This is a older person on a cognitive decline. I said I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to diagnose him. I'm not going to do that now. But if the sentiment among Democrats was, and the sentiment among the resistance was, and the sentiment among the never Trumpers were, we cannot afford for Trump's finger to be on the nuclear button for good reason. I agree with them. I agreed with them then. I agree with them now. You're going to just look the other way at this? And there's plenty of examples. I mean, in a press conference to defend himself that he's not senile, he confuses Egypt and Mexico. But just a few days before that, did you see this, where the president was asked about Donald Trump wanting to debate him immediately? If you missed that, let's take a look at what his response to that was.
President Donald Trump is ready to debate you right now. Do you accept?
He just said it on radio. What did he debate you immediately? He says.
Immediately.
Yes.
Will you debate him?
If I were him, I'd want to debate me too.
If I were him, I'd want to debate me too. Is that a stutter? Is that a gaffe? Or is that a confused elderly man? Again, it's not his fault. He's an older man. By the way, this hasn't gotten as much attention. As long as I've been paying attention, this is the first president I'm aware of. Last year, he did not do the Super Bowl interview. You know, the president does an interview before the Super Bowl, kind of a custom, very beneficial to the president. I mean, you're talking anywhere between 50 and 100 million eyeballs, the most watched program of the year. He didn't do it last year because it was Fox News. Okay. He's declined to do it this year on CBS. Why, in what world would a political campaign in a presidential election where your approval is at 37% decline to do an interview in front of 50 to 100 million people unless you know something, if you are his campaign, that the risk is far greater than the reward? Maybe we're now seeing, besides the fact that the Democratic Party doesn't really care about democracy, maybe we're now seeing why they just unilaterally declared, canceled the primary and said Biden wouldn't debate. At this point, do you honestly think Biden's going to debate Donald Trump? They'll just say, we're not going to dignify Trump with the debate because he's an insurrectionist, or at that point, he might be convicted. But do you really think that's what it's about? Do you really think he just, I'd rather spend time with the grandkids than do an interview before the Super Bowl in front of 50 to 100 million people and defend my policies and my record? There's something deeper going on here. And perhaps this is why Gavin Newsom, blessed by the DNC and the Biden administration, has been running a shadow campaign. Don't you think it was kind of odd that the Biden people approved him doing a debate with Ron DeSantis, potentially upstaging the current president? I do not want Donald Trump to win re-election, but I don't want to hear from the Democratic Party that they care so much about democracy, even though we know they don't, and we don't really have one, i.e. we live in the United Corporations of America and an oligarchy. But if they are going to look the other way, if they are not going to try and get this man to bow out gracefully and go off into the sunset, then you are risking democracy. This is bad news, and it's going to get a lot worse.